Shark debated a guy on black gene pools. He debated Endless Cemetery, one of the guys in your panel from a while ago. Oh no. Okay, I'll take a little look.
All right, so what's up, man? How you feeling?
I'm okay. I'm not much for pleasantries. Can you tell everyone why we're here? What do you want to talk about?
Damn.
So firstly, I was going to ask you if you had any questions specifically for me, but the reason why we're here is because of some tweets that you responded to that I kind of wanted to feel you out and get your mindset about.
Okay. And you're Endless Cemetery, is that right?
That's me. Endless Cemetery, all E's, one C, no A's, just like your report card in elementary school.
Okay.
I'm gonna come.
So what's the problem?
Well, you don't have any questions for me?
Nope. I don't have any questions for you. I don't.
Yeah, Shark's entering this conversation fairly antagonistically. Not a criticism.
Know necessarily what you believe. You didn't really say anything
Right
that
on.
you believe on Twitter. Besides, I think this tweet was from. I thought this tweet was from Tommy Lauren when you responded to my tweet.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the only reason I asked that is because a while back you subtweeted me calling me a backstabber. So I just wanted to.
That tweet. So wait, what?
Yeah.
I subtweeted you calling you a backstabber.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain?
It was. I mean, it's not important. We don't necessarily have to talk about it now if you don't want to. But,
I mean, if it's like a problem, if you think I called you a backstabber.
It's not necessarily something I consider a problem, but I just thought it was funny that you would engage with that situation in the way that you did, but never actually reach out to me. But you tweeted something about how hard it is to make friends in this space because people will stab you in the back.
This is similar energy to the Mel debate. No, because Mel is a woman, which means that all of your sympathy receptors are lighting up. But the guy that Shark's talking to is not to assume gender, but sounds more masculine, so.
And it was immediately after the hot mic vid with Dylan Burns. So I assumed that it was in reference to that. If it wasn't, then my mistake and I apologize.
No, chat knows that I don't really talk to anybody. I do enjoy my distance from other creators. And sometimes it's because other people stab you in the back. Other times it's just you bring people into your life and that could just cause more issues. I've always been a loner type person. And it is hard to, do you disagree that it's hard to make friends in these spaces?
No, not at all.
I would imagine you feel that way about Dylan Burns. Do you think he stabbed you in the back or something?
No, so the thing is like, I actually have had a really easy time making friends in this space, but as far as Dylan goes, if you want my full opinion on how things transpired with him.
I really don't. All I wanted was to know if you think that he stabbed you in the back or something.
Okay.
Unless I guess you really feel like it's important to explain to chat.
Get to
No,
it.
not really, honestly. But yeah, I don't feel like he stabbed me in the back. I just feel like he was dishonest in the way that he portrayed that situation is all.
Okay. So what's your problem with me?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have a problem with you. Like I said, I just wanted to, because you said in that particular tweet, hold on, let me pull it up so we can read it really quick, just so I don't like misquote you or anything.
You probably can't pull it up on private.
Yeah, I screenshot.
Unless you took a screenshot. Okay.
I did.
Okay, let me show chat the offending material. It's Exhibit A.
So you said these black people grow up in broken homes to parents who never wanted them, then unfortunately make it to an age old enough to tweet just to hate on people being in the happy family they never experienced.
Damn.
This is fatherless behavior and jealousy.
Okay.
And I just wanted to know where that comes from.
It comes from this tweet and people who agree with them. The material and like.
I wish I was black. Then I could call black people fatherless behavior. I can't do that, but Shark can do that. What power?
Like the image that I provided and the people who agree with them.
Well, I mean, obviously, it's you quote tweeted them and direct, like it was a direct response to them. But the question I'm asking you rather is, why say this specifically? Like, why say all of that?
That's how I feel.
Yeah, but why though?
Why? I mean, I'm not necessarily. I'm gonna be honest. I'm not necessarily sure what you're getting at. Are you asking like if I think that like if I have some like evidence that these black people come from like, well, those types of black people come from like bad homes or something, and that's why they tweet like this?
No, so I feel like we might have been off on the wrong foot because I also saw the title of your stream that was arguing whether or not you're a racist, and I had never called you a racist anywhere.
That's
so
just,
I kind of
that's
feel
just
like
clickbait. Don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, yeah. Well, that's.
And also, I didn't know exactly what you wanted to talk about. I would imagine that you think that what I said was in some way could even be racist or gives ammo to racists or something.
Well, I mean, it's definitely anti-black.
Okay, okay. It doesn't seem the title was too off the actual conversation topic then.
Well, I mean, is it really possible for a black person to be racist to other black people?
Yes.
You
Yes.
could be anti-black, but I don't. How so?
You could, well, you could dislike black people and be prejudiced against them.
I don't know how you answer that question too. Like from Shark's perspective, it's like, so you acknowledge that you can be hateful towards black people. Okay, but how can you be racist? Well, like that.
Yeah, but what power do you actually have to negatively affect that person's life outside of like brigading them? Which I'm not saying.
We don't judge whether something is racist or not based on how much power you individually in that moment can. If that, so, first of all, there are black people with plenty of power to reinforce anti-black racism, like Candace Owens. But even then, there are plenty of white people who are individually powerless and can't really do much on their own.
You would do, but
So this is like our issue is that for me, the power that you have over somebody is the interpersonal power that you can make them feel bad and you can be prejudiced against them. It's the same power that any other person has power over somebody else. Like we're social creatures. And so everybody has power over somebody to at least some extent to be able to make them think about something that they are, to give them complexes in the way that you interact with them, and to just be generally shitty to somebody. I mean, everybody knows about bullying.
yeah, I don't disagree with you, but that's always optional. Like I could always, if someone, say for example, is like spamming me with the N-word, I could just always call them an idiot and block them.
Well, is your response to cyberbullying and harassment just like turn off the monitor, Lamau?
No, I'm not saying that cyberbullying isn't an issue. I'm just saying that when we're talking about structural racism, I don't necessarily think that cyberbullying is at the top of the list at things that necessarily harmfully affect black people.
It doesn't have to be at the top of the list. It could be at the bottom of the list. Some people may not even think that it's on the list in the first place. I don't think it really matters. It affects people and it hurts them and it can change the course of their lives interpersonally.
Right. Yeah.
So I didn't bring up structural racism.
So yeah, but when we're talking about racism as in like anti-blackness, the whole point, the reason why it stings so hard is because there is a structure of global anti-blackness that negatively harms dark-skinned people. Would you disagree with that?
No.
Okay.
Do you think that black people can play into that just as easily as white people
Absolutely.
can? Okay.
Yeah.
And do
How
you
would you
think that black people
do
can
that?
perpetuate that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But when they do it, it's not racism?
I would think it's anti-blackness, but like I said before, black people don't necessarily have the power to, like, the way that black people engage with anti-blackness is way different from the way that white people engage in anti-blackness. You understand?
Can you explain?
So white people directly benefit from anti-blackness just as a consequence of cultural hegemony, whereas, black people only benefit from engaging in anti-blackness when they can get rewards from white people for doing that.
It doesn't have to be from white people. It could be from like honestly.
Well, yeah, you're
anyone.
correct.
Ah, man, it's the American diabolism thing again. This sucks. It's such a black and white view of the world. Like because white supremacy and white people are the enemy, like everything else has to orient around that central evil. So if black people are like doing something that's racist or whatever, it's like, okay, well, they're actually doing because they're victims of white people, and it's like there's no actual accounting for it.
Any structure.
True, it could be, but what I'm saying is that black people are also just as negatively affected by anti-blackness. It's just a matter of subjectively or from moment to moment how that actually gets applied.
Okay. I think do you think that a Jewish person can be anti-Semitic?
Yeah, sure.
Do you think a black person can be racist?
Yeah, sure. I'll. So if we're referring to racism just as like the belief that one race is superior to another, and we're completely ignoring power structures, then sure, yeah, black people can be racist.
Okay. I think these can be like two separate things. I think we can have the analysis of structural issues and the way in which they can interact with people and like ruin their lives and things along those lines. We can talk about interpersonal and institutional, and they can like go hand in hand, and they can be one without the other sometimes. And I think that's like all the same. And I think it's the same things. The only thing is that for me, it's like it's the okay. So to explain it, is the difference between somebody who has a plan of running over people on the sidewalk, but they have the option between hopping in either like a Prius, or they have the option of hopping in like you ever played Sonic? You know that big semi truck that was like following him
Yeah.
through San Francisco? They can hop into either of those, and the semi is probably going to do more damage, but you're still running over people on the street.
Right. I get this analogy. The difference being that for one person, like both people can hop in a semi and run over people in the street. The difference being that one person gets paid to hop in a semi and run over people in the street. Whereas when the other person runs over people in the street, they go to jail. Best case scenario.
Wait, that's not really analogous, right? In a white supremacist system, both white and black people are less punished for being biased towards black people than they otherwise would be. Like, black people don't go to jail for being racist against black people, to pull the analogy forward.
All right. I'm still it seems like for the person receiving the tires on their back, I'm not sure how much they like care about that in that moment.
Individually, yeah, but when we're talking about stuff like anti-blackness and racism and politics in general, you're not dealing with people individually.
In interpersonal issues, you absolutely are. And that's how a lot of this stuff happens, is interpersonally. And so yeah. You would absolutely be interacting with human beings, and your single interaction with human beings honestly could be even stronger for you for the way in which you're going to take your life in the future than like institutional things, because a lot of us, it's very easy to abstract institutional harm as opposed to what somebody just said to you while you were walking home on the sidewalk.
Unless it's derived from an institution that harms people.
Sure. And I think black people can quite as easily do that. So honestly, I think the only real thing that's happening is how the other person feels or whatever.
Oh yeah, side note, by the way, I think the two best roguelites ever made are Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon. This is Enter the Gungeon. It's super dope.
For what they like get from it. And honestly, I don't think like your average person would really care. And I personally don't either for interpersonal issues. It just doesn't seem like, it seems like you're talking about the same thing.
Oh, sorry, Hades too. Though wait, Hades is really good for reasons other than its moment-to-moment gameplay. That's good, but like, you guys know why Hades is where it is, right? Its direction, art style, story, voice acting, atmosphere, presence. In terms of raw gameplay, for me, the big two are Binding of Isaac and Gungeon for different reasons. Because Binding of Isaac is not mechanically complicated. It like in terms of its moment-to-moment gameplay, it's complicated in terms of its amount of content. If you have a gigantic brain and know everything, Binding of Isaac gets 5 trillion times easier. If you like know all the like techniques or whatever, like I'll not pick up this one coin because if I leave that coin right there, then I can get it when I get that item. That ultimately refresh this. Now I get that. Like, and Gungeon is nowhere near that complicated, but it's way more mechanically demanding. But Hades has given me a chub to some of the deities that talk to you. So I guess it's all even. The big three.
But with like different words really when it comes down to how your average person can feel about it. And like that's what I'm talking about here.
But that's not how you worded it. You said these black people.
Yes, those types of black people.
Well, what are those types of black people?
Well, the black people well, for one,
Sorry, I'm going to pause this so that I don't have an image of a pale woman with a whip up while black people talk about their experiences with racism. Anyway, I wanted you all to know who I was referring to when I talked about my chub. There you go. God, the art's so f***ing good. Sorry, okay.
Black person who said that, and to the black people who agree with it.
What are they
saying? Do you think that when I said these black people, I mean, I meant all black people?
You picked the worst one there.
No, my concern isn't necessarily with whether you're talking about all or some black people when we're talking about what you said. My concern is that you use all of these tropes that are employed by whites in the construct of anti-blackness. That's number one. But also, what did they say? Like, I guess my question to you at this point would be, how did you interpret what these original tweets said that would push you to respond in this manner?
How did I interpret them? I interpreted them as being the type of people who, one, care so deeply about bloodlines that they're going to name and shame people who are in happy families for not breeding in the way that they like. It seems like they would like to also, from the comments as well, it seems like they would like to have less light-skinned black people. They also feel like this type of stuff is harming and is harmful to black people, and the black community is making us weaker. And these are weak links who are doing the bidding of white people.
What do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? It could be from a plethora of different reasons. It could be from the YouTube content that they watch. It could be from the types of people who can benefit by getting clicks and revenue from spreading this type of stuff, just like every other conspiracy or hateful thing can be. It could simply be because they were around those types of people and those are the ideas that are ingrained in them. I don't know. I know somebody brought up at one point in time that apparently there was a concerted effort by white people at one point in time, or I don't know if you want to still say today, to like make black people lighter or something. And so the way in which they're going to be using their generational trauma is to attack just normal people who are in happy relationships with children who are lighter than they would enjoy.
See, that's what's weird to me. Before we get to that, would you disagree that what you said was anti-black?
Nope.
Okay, so there's that. But before we get to this, because I'm not seeing any prescriptive statements in either one of these tweets.
Shark is a wall. Shark is a goddamn just an iron wall.
The original tweet, sure, they use Pat Mahomes and Patrick Mahomes as an example, but the thing that they're specifically talking about is melanin, not necessarily black people in general. And as far as the bloodline thing goes, are you familiar with the concept of Afrofuturism?
No.
So to basically make a very complicated and long issue very short, the idea of Afrofuturism is just the concept of ensuring that African diaspora people exist in the future. So knowing that part of the project of white supremacy was to lighten people up, right? It's not just like a conspiracy theory or something like that. It's something that they actually talked about. And knowing that colorism only affects people of dark skin, that
Wait. White supremacists have generally not liked race mixing. Whitening up dark-skinned people entails race mixing, unless you mean some kind of other method of... historically, I think, like, historically, for the most part, and this is like a really broad thing, but as I understand it, okay, white supremacy in the West has mostly been about protecting white countries as a kind of enclave and making sure that the presence of non-whites in those countries is exclusively done for like labor purposes. You know what I mean? Like, or it's kept controlled and separate. Like historically that's been the narrative, you know? And then you have people like, you know, Adolf Hitler and whatever. You have the hyper-militaristic white supremacists who want to literally just kill everyone else and just eventually make the whole world white. But I think that tends to be in the minority. I think for the most part, the white supremacist narrative has been keep our countries clean, you know, big finger quotes, and use the rest of the other races for labor and for resource exploitation. Anyway, this is tangential.
That's why we have skin lightening creams. People like Stardust have admitted to have lightened in the past, right? Knowing that these things exist as part of a larger structure and knowing what we know about, like I said before,
well, that wasn't necessarily white people pushing for that to be racist. They're like, yeah, dark-skinned people, get more light with your skin whitening cream. A lot of that was us having control of the media, white people. You know, we've like put out the comics and the TV. So beauty standards are oriented around a European aesthetic. So there are people, like in India, for example, I think skin lightening is pretty common. Not like super common, but, you know, decently common. And it's because, you know, there's a kind of global West-centric beauty standard that they want to conform to by lightening their skin. But there's a lot of complicated stuff there.
Cultural hegemony, where it's not something you have to necessarily be consciously aware of or try to do. It's just something you do as a consequence of the society you live in. That's something that can happen. And like I said before, I don't see anything prescriptive in these tweets. I don't see anything about how other black people should operate. Maybe in the replies, I didn't go that far, and I'm sure that there's other people who would do that. I wouldn't agree with them. So I feel like we have the same take in the regard of.
Wait, one moment. This is very interesting to me. So I asked this question to Aston Mack last night because he wanted to speak as well. So let's say, do you know anything about my background? You know how I grew up?
Yeah, we were on a panel together where you said that you were kind of military brat, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on that panel, did you not say that you didn't necessarily heavily identify with your blackness at the time?
It depends on what you mean by like heavily identify. I don't think about it super often. And it's not like a massive part of my brand. If somebody was to ask me about me and I was going to give them like pieces of
Doesn't it seem to shift a little bit due to the amount of white people trying to be black and darken their skin? Well, that's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit more optimistic about you know, different races getting along here in the States. I mean, black people have had so much power over American culture that while we still live in a country that is white supremacist in a lot of meaningful ways. Culturally, there's so much push from non-white groups, mostly black, but broadly, you know, that there's like we're living now in a country where there are like white people who feel a little insecure that they're not matching beauty standards that are non-white in origin. You know, which that's interesting. Like, if nothing else, it's indicative that there is more, you know, there's a stronger balance of power than there was before, at least, and that's good. You know, I don't want anyone to feel insecure about their skin tone at all, of course, but fashion trends will ebb and flow, and I would rather they ebb and flow in an a-racial sense rather than like exclusively being towards European standards.
Of me, it would be about like things that I've done and things that I enjoy and the people I've been around. And not
You
like,
don't think that your blackness isn't like super crucial or super important about you?
it can be to the ways I'm viewed by other people, but to me myself, no.
Okay. Well, why is that?
I like being black. I would not like to change it if I had the anti-black button.
Sure.
But it's just not. I don't think about it that
It's
often.
right next to the.
I'm not sure if I can give you an
gun
answer of
button.
like exactly why. It's just not very. I just don't really care.
So it bothers you when other people do?
That is a leap in logic. No.
Well, I mean, I'm reading this tweet here of you like responding in a particular way to people saying that they want their kids and their grandkids to be black, like dark skinned black.
I think it's not because of the blackness. It's because of the super weird, creepy, controlling nature of trying to coerce your children and grandchildren into breeding the way that would make you happy. I don't see any difference between this and like, here. Can I ask a question? What like before we go too far? Two like questions, okay, and then I'll answer all your questions.
Sure.
If I were to make a tweet, okay, because yeah, I grew up in New York, I grew in Missouri, in St. Louis, and I grew up in Kentucky. Not exactly, you know, but I don't have to dox myself. But
yeah.
With that being said, in a lot of the areas I've been around a lot of white people. And when I go to like Atlanta, Georgia or something, or I go to like North Carolina, we visit some family and they live in what I can only describe. You know what? Here's how I'll describe it. It's like when I go to see them, it's like the what's his name? I was gonna say Kevin Samuels. That's not right. Kendrick Lamar. It's like To Pimp a Butterfly, sort of like album cover, but in real life. Okay, there's like a church's chicken, and then there's like a lot of like poor infrastructure, and then there's like kids riding on beat up BMX bikes, and I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to walk the streets after the street lights come on. Okay, and that's where I go visit some family every now and again. If I were to make a tweet and it was like, let's take a picture, okay? I'm just describing to you the picture. These are not words that I'm saying. It's a picture of like stereotypical, everyone's dressed as like like early 2000s Soulja Boy, okay?
So it's hood.
Sure. They look like they're in saggy pants, they bumping in they lowrider. And I go, man, I'm so glad I didn't grow up like these people. And I want to make sure that my family never
Whoa. What the do you mean, these people?
ends up like, my bloodline never ends up like this. This is insane. Would you feel the same exact way you feel about that tweet as you would if I made that hypothetical tweet?
No.
You would not feel the same. Why would that be?
Because we're not talking about like so in response in specificity, the reason why I would feel differently about that is because we're not talking about like a global project to turn black people into white people. You're just talking
I don't know if there's a global project to turn black people into white people. Race politics is so incredibly complicated that you can probably find like hundreds of like hyper specific elements of culture and society and institutions that are doing this or that or whatever. But like broadly speaking, I don't know if that's like a good description of what's happening at all.
basically just poverty shaming at that point.
So you don't have to be poor to engage in that type of culture.
In hood culture?
Yeah. Absolutely. Honestly, I would even bet that a lot of people that engage in quote unquote hood culture didn't come from hoods at all. The people actually, don't you agree with like the main people who consume like quote unquote hood culture are just like suburban white boys?
No,
bumping like Playboy Cardi?
The hood still exists at the end of the day, and it exists for a reason.
Okay, but I'm talking about the sort of culture that is sold and what people like and aspire to. I'm not talking about like if hoods still exist.
I'm confused because you were talking about the people being specifically black that you would take this picture of.
they would be specifically black, just like the picture that they took was specifically a darker person breeding with a lighter skinned person and them having an issue with it.
So okay, you kind of lost me. Could you just start from the beginning? So you're saying that if you took a picture of yourself in the hood.
No. If I just took a picture of like a stereotypical image of just like a hood, like saggy pants, like lowrider, big chains or whatever, Gucci belt sort of people, and some of them may even be throwing what some people may even think to be like gang signs or something. Okay,
but they're all black.
Sure, they're all
like
black.
dark skin black.
Sure,
though.
they're all dark skinned black.
Okay.
And I say, I'm so glad that I didn't grow up like these people or like this. I sure hope I'm going to fight hard to make sure my bloodline doesn't end up like them. That like ellipses, that's insane. Would you feel the same way that you would about that person's breeding tweet as my tweet about like people in the hood?
No, because that tweet will be literally anti-black.
That's elaborate.
You're literally saying you don't want your kid to grow up like the hood black people. How is that not anti-black when we know the hood is a product of black people and their resistance and their experiences in white supremacy?
I don't know. Personally, I've talked to a lot of people who come from the hood, and a lot of them are like, I wish I never grew up there and I'm leaving the second I can.
Yeah.
It is worth pointing out that it is bad, you know? Like the hood is slums. It is bad, you know. It's not good. Yeah, I don't know about the hood is of black people argument either, you know. I mean broadly, but you know, there's it's complicated, yeah.
But that doesn't really address why the hood exists in the first place.
Okay, that's all right. That's fine.
Whereas we know that this type of shit that we're looking at, while the people doing it might not have that in mind, because we agree on that particular like idea, let these niggas live, they're happy, right? But that said, it is like the idea that you would take issue with dark-skinned people wanting to make sure that there are dark-skinned people in the future is that's what I'm trying to figure out, honestly.
It's okay. So the thing is, all right. So I find it.
The euphemisms here are actually exactly what a white nationalist would say, right? Because we're not talking about making sure black people exist in the future. We're talking about forcing your children or pressuring your children to marry in your race. But the euphemisms are identical. They're the exact same ones that you would hear.
I don't think we're ever going to agree on this because of, like, the way you answered that question. It's just like it seems like the way in which we engage in the world is just so fundamentally different. I don't think we're ever going to agree on this. But if we're going to take on this, okay, do you think that this is a part of a planned effort to get to exterminate exterminate black people when it's cheered on when black people and white people or black people and other races have relationships?
So I got to answer this kind of long form, right? Because the picture that they used wasn't of a black person and a Filipino person, or a black person and an Indian person, or a black person and a Malaysian person. It's very specifically black and white. And this is kind of the problem.
Wait, yeah? Oh boy.
That we run into when we talk about interracial relationships to begin with is that it's yet another aspect of white supremacy where white people have to center themselves in everything, including black culture. Case in point, like you were just describing, hood culture, quote unquote, was coming.
Wait, how is having an interracial relationship with a black and a white person, the white person centering themselves? I don't know what that means. You fall in love with who you fall in love with.
Modified by white people to be bought and sold by and to other white people. We're still in the hood, which is not fair, right? So when we talk about stuff like the quality of melanin in someone's skin in reference to racial, for dire want of a better term, racial mixing between black and white people.
Now, I don't like that this is the term that I have to use. However, circumstances forced me.
Do I think that these white women that these black men are engaged with have it at the forefront of their conscious minds to lighten up the races so that there'll be less dark-skinned black people in the world? No, I don't think that. But it has to be stated, which is why I don't necessarily think that the people who have the opinions that they do in these tweets are particularly harmful to black people or anyone else. It must be stated that one of the goals of white people or of white supremacy was the lightening of the races, right? The Mormons talked about it.
Okay, I need to stress this so everyone understands. White supremacists do not like it when white women have children with black men. That is actually the thing they like the least in the entire world. There is nothing that they like less than that specific thing. Except for when it happens in porn. Good point.
As stated previously, even in cultures that don't have white people, there is colorism, right? So there's skin lightening in India. Filipino people, they don't like to be out in the sun because that makes their skin darker, right? So when we're talking about not just blackness, right? Because that's another pitfall for us too, is defining blackness by melanin quality. When we have people like Angela Davis, right?
Is he saying melanin quantity or quality? Because I keep hearing quality, which seems worse than him saying quantity, but quantity is the thing that makes more sense. It could just be the way he's pronouncing it. I'm going to assume that he means quantity.
These types of people. We're not talking just about black people as the monolith. We're talking very specifically about people with high melanin quality, chocolate niggas, dark skinned niggas, right? Midnight niggas, people like us, right? Do you or do you not want people that look like us to exist in the future?
It is of no consequence to me. I couldn't care less.
He's a wall.
Really?
Not at all.
Iron wall.
Because because it's not my decision to make. This is it for me. This sounds exactly like if you're asking me, you know what this sounds like? This sounds like a conservative conspiracy of like the LGBT. You've seen this, where it's like, look at the trends of LGBT people. Soon, by like 2060, everyone will be gay and straight people will be gone. All because of this wokeness, and we won't breed anymore. And soon the human population will come to a rest because we'll be too busy having gay orgies instead of breeding as God intended.
Can I ask you a question, like a serious question?
Wait, I want to finish this. That's exactly what this sounds like to me. It's not my job. And I couldn't care less how people decide to breed. I don't think that it's very important for them to, at the forefront of their mind when it comes to choosing partners, for their
He's essentially doing what TERFs do by essentializing blackness with struggle. Yeah, like I've always said to you guys, essentialism is the brain poison. He's doing the exact same thing here. Almost every time we come up against somebody with a bad set of ideas, it's because of a lack of sociological imagination. They essentialize ideas, they take different concepts, groups of people, demographics, whatever, and they mash them together and they become inseparable blocks that then are argued for as a unit, as a collective. It's a very dangerous thing to do. It's essential to any fascist, racist advocacy. They need to essentialize, otherwise they can't do what they need to do. And it creeps into nominally left-leaning thought as well.
Prodigy to be of their same melanin quality. Or quantity, I guess we'll say. It's not important. I couldn't care less if people choose that way. And I feel like when I start to do that, we start to get into a weird authoritarian eugenics sort of mindset where some people should be made and some people shouldn't.
No one is doing that though. They're making a personal decision, and you're literally taking.
You're right. They are making a personal decision. So I think it's incredibly weird for me to comment and tell them what I think should and how they should or should not be using their seed. Because by definition, you're saying that if I think that I want there to be as many specifically dark-skinned people, that it is unethical and wrong for black people to be race mixing with people lighter than them, right?
That is not
true. You are. That exactly what you're saying.
People, where in these tweets, or did I say that black people shouldn't race mix with white people? Because no one's ever said that.
I'm talking about the mindset that this takes on. You are, by definition, if you say it is good for, do you think it's, all right, let me ask you then. Do you want more people? Do you want there to specifically, do you care a lot about there specifically being more dark-skinned people in the future? And if there's not, is that neutral or is that bad?
So if there's no dark-skinned people in the future, then that means that the goal of white supremacy was realized. That means that if that were the case in the present, I wouldn't exist. So yeah, that kind of has I have a problem with that.
Doesn't this seem like cutting your nose to spite your face?
To ensure that people who look like me exist in the future?
It seems like the only reason you're doing it is not because it is important or in some way like a good thing. It's just because other people don't want it. And so it just seems like turning your nose up.
Okay. Reminder that there are good ways and bad ways to make sure there are people who look like him in the future, right? So here are things that you should defend like a minority group against, or like a racial group or whatever. Like, I don't think they should be genocided or like exterminated, or I don't think they should be systemically deprived into non-existence. You know, I think they should be free and da-da-da-da, you know. Here's a way in which it's actually okay for people of some skin tones to not be around as much anymore. If a bunch of them had loving consensual relationships with lighter skinned people, I think that's okay. That's fine. Yeah, like, all right, fine, you know? Eventually, we're all going to be like a nice, you know, brown midtone, and God willing, let it arrive here soon so people can stop making a fucking issue out of all this. But yeah, it's just not a big... I mean, really as well, like, you know, there's a reason why humans in different parts of the world have different levels of melanin. Even if everyone on Earth all became a caramel color, like today, within a couple thousand years, people who live in what is now Finland would be lighter skinned than people who live in what is now Zimbabwe. It's such a nothing. Just let people live their lives. It doesn't change their culture or their ethnicity inherently. It's just like
Add something because somebody, it just seems like you do something because someone told you not to, and not because you actually want to do it. That's the weird part to me.
It's not just that they don't want me to do it. They're actively trying to kill all of us. That's what anti-blackness is.
Not the lady who's just getting dick.
Okay. And you don't have to die to not, for your children to not be, for more people to not be darker skinned in the future. You could just like happily be married to somebody who's lighter than you and have children.
But my kids would be light skinned. They would still be black, and that's kind of the point, right? Is that as a black person, I care a lot, because if I have kids with someone who might have family members who hate them, that's going to affect their development.
You should work on the relationships between your family, and if you can't, you should cut them out of your life because you're their parent and you have full stewardship.
Sorry, I think I missed that. Somebody emailed me something wild.
My kids would be light skinned. They would still be black
and have children.
But my kids would be light skinned. They would still be black, and that's kind of the point, right? Is that as a black person, I care a lot, because if I have kids with someone who might have family members who hate them, that's going to affect their development.
You should work on the relationships between your family, and if you can't, you should cut them out of your life because you're their parent and you have full stewardship over how they're raised, and if somebody is hurting them, you should cut them from that child's development in life.
How is that fair to the child?
How is it fair to the child? Because you're taking control of how they are raised and you're making the best decision for them. Same way, like you take them to
members of their family
that hate them. Yes, 100%.
When I could just not people
not have them.
People.
Wait, what the? Oh yeah, my family would hate mixed race children, so I'm not gonna have mixed race children. What, you want me to confront my family on their being bigoted? Why would I do that? What?
Not have them, not at all, but I could choose to have kids with someone who's going to have family members that understand the black experience and are amenable to it.
Who you love and who you would have children with because like your aunt is racist?
So I think we're also getting fucked up with who we love and who we have kids with, because I don't know.
Do you remember Shark's fatherless behavior tweet? Okay. All right. Sorry.
About you, I like to play in the snow, right? But I don't have.
Goddamn hypocrites. Textbook. He means he likes f***ing white women.
That is an incredibly weird way to say it.
I bet. But as I said, I have dipped my whip in the mayonnaise many a time. I don't have kids though. Why? Because there are consequences to being raised mixed race, and mixed race people will tell you that.
Do you think there should be less?
There are consequences to being raised black. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Mixed race children are likely to be light-skinned or perceived as light-skinned black. Dark-skinned black people are treated way the worse than light-skinned. So wait, if a mixed race kid is going to be treated better in a lot of respects than a darker-skinned black person, so that's not even a valid metric of. Okay.
Mixed race people.
I don't feel one way or the other about the existence of mixed race people. I think.
Do you think the world is worse when more mixed race people are in the world?
No, I do not. I don't care.
Do you think the world would be better if there would be more dark-skinned people, if it meant that there would be less mixed race people in the world?
No, I think it would be good for dark-skinned people if they continue to exist in the future. And I say that as a dark-skinned person.
Euphemism.
It would be good for me knowing that people that look like me would exist in the future, because that means that I could exist in the future.
Do you think that it matters? Do you think it's really important? Do you think it's important like how things happen as opposed.
Note how he thinks he's his race, by the way. Like, that's it. Like, if the future is full of, like, ambiguously brown mixed race people, he thinks of that as a future where he could not exist. Which, to me, is really weird. You should not identify that strongly with your race, no matter what your race is. Like, there are cultural elements, you know, obviously people's lived experiences vary, but if you're thinking about yourself as like an element of your race to the extent that you're essentializing it, where you can't even imagine that you could exist in a world where people are mixed race, like broadly, that is very strange.
Opposed to if they happen in the first place.
What do you mean by that?
So let's say if I don't have a car right now, okay? Because I don't have a car at the moment. It got totaled. So I don't have a car. Do you think the situation around me not having a car would be different if I don't have a car because I sold it because I wanted to be able to put down money to buy a house and now I own a home and that's cool? Or if I don't have if I don't have a car, it's not to me. So like it doesn't really matter if it exists in the world because I don't have it. I don't have access to it.
We're not talking about individuals. Though. We're
trillions
talking about
of dollars exist in the world, but like poor people still live on the street. So I think it really matters if you have access to it or not. Don't you think? To like the person.
Hold on. This is such a fucking weird analogy.
You haven't even been able to allow me to finish the analogies to know if it's even like makes sense or not.
It's weird to me because we're talking about access. Why are you talking about access when we're talking about people just existing or not existing?
Because if it's not able to be a part of your life, it might as well not exist in this to your average human being.
So I shouldn't care about whether people who look like me exist in the future because I'll never meet them.
I haven't even been able to finish this yet. Please allow me.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I apologize.
So like, I don't have a car for one of two reasons. One is because I sold it to be able to put down something on a house, and now I own a house. And another reason is because it was stolen. Do you think that the situations around the cars not being there changes the situation entirely around the car not being a part of my life anymore?
No, not particularly.
No, if it's stolen or I'm able to trade it in for money to use it somewhere else.
So wait, you're losing me because I'm trying to talk about black people existing and we're doing this car analogy. So you're asking me if there's a difference between your car getting like repoed or something and you selling your car and making money off of it.
Yes, the car is gone from your life in both scenarios. But
you benefited from one scenario as opposed to the other.
Sure. Or even let's say I didn't necessarily benefit. Let's just say, well, let's not count it as a benefit. Let's say I just take the money and then I put it somewhere in a savings account, and or like an emergency fund, and I'm not able to use it.
Just for my benefit and chat's benefit, what are you analogizing here?
That question I'm trying to get to is I think it matters how things happen, even though the outcomes can on the surface look the same. If in the future there are no black people, or big air quote black people, super dark skinned people, because
I was going to say black people are going to exist, but dark skinned people specifically.
Okay, there's no dark skinned people, not for one reason because they were all systematically genocided, and in the future there's no dark skinned people because they just happen to be around people who love them and who made children with people who love them who just happen to not have as much melanin as them. I think that's really important. I think that's an incredibly different distinction. Yes, there'd be less in both instances, but how it happens is incredibly important as opposed to what happens in the first place.
You don't think those two are directly related as a consequence of cultural hegemony in America or in the globe?
Holy shit, no. Yeah, okay, so he does genuinely believe that race mixing is part of the white supremacist project. So this is literally the Great Replacement, fully 100% with no distinctions whatsoever, except for switching like who's, you know, the parties involved. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, no, race mixing when people are consensually getting together and loving each other is not genocide. So the point Shark's making, the point I'm making, and I think everyone knows this, but just to like make sure that everyone knows it. So the idea here is like if you have like, okay, so just to simplify the analogy, imagine you have a community that is not remotely large enough. Imagine you have a community right here, okay? Just like this. It's like a city state or something, I don't know. And okay, right? Are you ready for it? How ready are you guys? Okay? We're even going to use the real skin tones, all right? And one half, no, that's not white enough. One half belongs to the ham sandwich race. No, that's also not right. That's better. That's closer to my skin tone. That's okay. The sandwich race. There we go. Over here. Okay. And the other half over here is the not ham sandwich race. I don't think anything in a ham sandwich looks like this unless it's like pumpernickel bread, or something like that. So there we go. And this is our. So it's like okay. So there are 1,000 people who live in this community, right? Okay, are you guys following? There's 1,000 people live here. That's the total number of people who can live here. There's only so much room, food available, that stuff, okay? So here's the thing. The basic distinction here is that the person that Shark is talking to doesn't think there's any difference between the following two scenarios. Scenario number 1 is where over the course of a long enough period of time, these two groups intermingle and race mix, and eventually they both look like this. So like 200 years later, the skin tone looks more or less like this. And that's what it is. And there are no more light-skinned people and no more dark-skinned people, and that's what it would look like, okay? And what the person Shark is talking to is saying is that outcome is fundamentally indistinguishable from the elimination of this group and then the population being refilled like this. The person Shark is talking to is arguing that there's not really a difference between those two things. Because in both futures, there isn't like the really dark skin tone still around. I think that's obviously ridiculous, but you can believe those two are the same things if you believe race mixing is genocide, which he does. So,
knowing that anti-blackness is global and that you don't necessarily have to yourself harbor prejudice towards black people to engage in anti-black behavior.
The anti-black behavior he's referring to here is loving one of them and starting a family with them. That is the anti-black behavior he's referring to specifically.
Do you think that having a white wife as a black guy and having mixed race children is anti-black behavior?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page there.
He does though. He lied when he said that. He does actually believe that. He's just running away from it here because when phrased that directly, it sounds bad. But he does agree with that statement.
I just think that it could play into that, but I'm not gonna like I said, cut my nose to spite my face. I'm not going to now.
It's not really doing that though, because you could just as easily, like you're assuming the assumption here is that I wouldn't just as easily find love and caring and a fulfilling relationship with someone who's also dark skinned like me.
That's so weird.
What? Yeah. What? Like you fall in love with a white girl and you're like, wait, no, this isn't right. And then you find a black. No one's saying you couldn't, just that you didn't in this scenario. Okay.
How?
It's just so weird to take this in and just specifically move yourself from being around and loving certain types of people because like there was and or is an effort to make less dark-skinned people. I feel like
it's weird to want more dark-skinned people to exist, knowing that there's a global project to
change your behavior in the sense that you would like forego relationships with lighter-skinned people. Yes, and like criticize darker-skinned people for having sex and children with lighter-skinned people. Yes,
they're not doing that though.
They are 100%. They are 100%.
Maybe in the comments, but I feel like you're reading super far into this when it's very simple. What do you think
they mean when they say this is insane?
It's insane because the family started black and now it's white.
That's insane. That's wild. That's crazy. That's unfathomable.
White supremacy is insane. Yes.
So again, right there, he lies when he says he doesn't believe. White supremacy is when race mixing. He just said that. Yeah, right there. Through loving relationships and interracial children or mixed race children, that is white supremacy. So yeah, he does believe that.
Having lighter skinned children is white supremacy?
No.
So
he does believe that.
But it is a goal of white supremacy.
Wait, so I want to make sure that we get this so we get this down, okay? So there being more lighter skinned people is white supremacy, but having lighter skinned children, which makes more lighter skinned people and less darker skinned people, is not white supremacy. Is that right?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry, the cat was screaming.
Sure. Like, so I just think it's really odd. So you said And tell me if I'm wrong.
Here's the thing very simply, right?
Okay.
Very, very simply.
Sure.
So it doesn't fucking matter at the end of the day. Whoever you want to love, whoever you choose to have kids with, it truly doesn't matter.
It seems like it matters because you're telling me that you're
his whole argument is that it does matter. The entire time he's been arguing that it does matter, because if enough dark-skinned people decide to have children with light-skinned people, then no longer in the future would there be people who look like him. That's his whole argument.
playing into white supremacist hands by having. Okay,
no, that's not what I'm saying. But
you're not saying that you're playing into white supremacist hands by you being a dark-skinned person and having more lighter-skinned babies, therefore leading to less darker-skinned people because you could have had sex with like a darker-skinned person.
Dudes like this legit think they're further left than anyone else on Earth. Oh my God, Gally, that is so fucking true. There are so many people. This thing in particular with like a lot of black people basically just being black supremacists and thinking that makes them leftist. That's a specific thing. But there are a lot of like white people who agree with this, and a lot of other like kind of adjacent scenarios, usually tanky tier stuff, where the people they'll like everything they say sounds like it could have come out of like Mein Kampf with a couple of the like name switch, the proper noun switch, and then but they're acting the whole time like this is some sort of straightforward like progressive belief
leading to more darker skinned people. You're saying you're not playing into white supremacy if you do that?
On an individual basis, no, but there is such a thing, and I'm thinking Dominican specifically, where you go out of your way. I forget what the term is, something La Raza, where you go out of your way to procreate with lighter skinned people so that your kids will be lighter skinned. That's definitely a thing. And that's something that people can engage.
They didn't say go out of their way, though. They were just saying that they happened to, that they just did.
Isn't this the same ideology that you just expressed to me before?
Huh? So
you said earlier that mixed race people have like bigotry towards them, and that's why I wouldn't have a mixed race person as a baby, because their aunt could be like so racist and that would fuck up their development. How can
for
you
me
as a
personally? Yes.
Okay, so if you're like a dark-skinned person and you're like, man, global blackness is crazy, they're gonna grow up in a racist world that hates them. I don't want to do that, but I do want children. I'm gonna go specifically have lighter-skinned children so they don't experience anti-black racism. Is that not literally the same exact thing that you're doing?
I mean, yes, that's the end goal is the completion of the project of white supremacy, which is to reduce and eliminate the number of dark-skinned people in the world.
See, again, interracial marriage and race mixing is a part of a goal to eliminate black people. It's intended. It's a project. It's a genocide. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So do you think that you're like an unwitting...
Also, holy shit, nowhere in the project of white supremacy is there white women getting railed by black guys and having mixed race children. I swear to God, I'm just saying this as a white person. He may not know because he's not white. I'll say this is the insider truth right here. White supremacy, that grand plan, does not involve white women getting railed by black guys and having mixed race children. That is not a part. White racists don't like mixed race children. They consider them black. Okay.
Like an unwitting participant? Do you think that you're like a co-collaborator, even if you may not know, of like white supremacy by having mixed race children?
Not necessarily, no.
You say not necessarily, and then you say you're qualifying a lot, which makes me feel like without the qualification, you would say yes.
Because you're talking about groups and then individuals, and you're flip-flopping back and forth between the two when there's a very distinct difference between the two. As far as individuals go, love and procreate with whoever you want. But in terms of the group as a whole, you're hurting black people by having light-skinned kids?
Well, wasn't that their position? Like this position, they're like, you're playing
so far into these tweets that
really don't
just
think it's that far.
That literally just talking about how the kids don't have melanin, and I don't get how we get that far. You have to walk me through that.
Sure. Let me ask this question then. Let's say
why is this guy so allergic to his own positions? Shark's only pointing out what he believes.
Once again, I tweet a picture. I love tweeting pictures. And it's of a noticeably gay person, okay? It's a little gay black boy with a little gay black boyfriend. And I go, man, I never want my bloodline to end up like this. Ellipses. That's just insane. How would you feel about that tweet?
It would be homophobic as fuck, but homophobia. Wow. But wait a minute, it's homophobic, but you can't one-to-one race with sexual preference. because sexual preference is not necessarily immutable the same way having dark skin is. You understand that, right?
Your sexual preference is a what?
You could go your entire life without anyone knowing you're gay. That same is not true if you're a dark-skinned black person.
Do you not think that like sexuality is a immutable characteristic?
Okay. Do you agree or disagree that there are people who are gay, you would have no clue they were gay?
Some people, sure.
Okay. What's the first thing you notice when you look at a person?
I try not to look people in
Cock
the eyes.
size.
I'm scared. They scare me. But I don't know. It could be like their hair, what they're wearing. This isn't a good question to ask for me because like
Yeah, this is very much a projection as well, because obviously the guy Shark is talking to thinks of race first. You know? Like, he could have said, what is very easy to notice about a person? To which race would be a pretty obvious answer. Like, I mean, because that's the answer he's like trying to lead to. But what is the first thing you notice about a person? Well, I mean, not race. I mean, are they wearing a funny hat? Could be a lot of things.
didn't I say earlier
Yeah, you
that
don't
like
care
race
about
isn't
black
that
people
important?
yet, or that you don't care
That's
necessarily
true.
about blackness. Yeah.
I do not. So true. I do not care about black people.
I worded that incorrectly. You don't put a whole lot of stock into blackness.
My own personal no. But I care about what people care about. So if you think that your blackness is like super important, I don't want anybody to take that from you. That seems like a really important thing to you. And
Well, I mean, it kind of seems like you do, considering how you react to these tweets.
Well, you're not. Well, that's the thing. You're not worrying about your blackness anymore, are you? You're worrying about your children and grandchildren's.
I'm worried about people like me existing in the future, who
Your
they choose
children
to
are people
procreate
like
with.
you, are they not?
But who they choose to procreate with is their business as well. Did I not say that individually it doesn't matter?
Like
It's just my individual
it doesn't
choice.
seem. It seems like a good way to skirt away from responsibility.
I'm not
when you-
responsible for it because black people aren't a monolith. You understand that, right? So not only am I not responsible for what other black people do, I can't control what other black people do. I can only control what I do.
But the tweet in question was about controlling what the children do. Your children, the race of the people they fall in with.
Okay, and it seems like the way in which you would like to do that would be to influence other people to do
How?
what you would like to do, like tweets like this that
Like what?
that we've been talking about, like this the offending material tweet. Do you not believe that that's like a
Where
that
are
they
the
have an
prescriptive-
interest? So this is like arguing
can
with
you-
some.
can you
This is like
explain
arguing with
something to
somebody
me?
who doesn't believe in stochastic terrorism. Like you don't have to. You
Tell
don't
me
have
where
to
the
say
prescriptives-
specifically. You don't have to say the prescription because you walk people to the line specifically. You
The
walk
line
people.
being that they
You
want
walk
their
people
kids
to
to be
the
dark
very
skinned?
line, and then you go, well, who knows what could happen if you tell people that they're living.
So the original, can somebody pull up the original tweet super quick just so I can show it? Because the guy Shark's talking to is being totally dishonest right now. Thank you, Tequila Sunset. Appreciate that. Yeah, so the original tweet, the photo is about two generations of family, and the kid, it's like a black guy and a white, I said, could be Hispanic, I don't know, lighter skinned kid, then an even lighter skinned kid, and the I never want my bloodline to end up like this. That's insane. So obviously, when you're talking about preventing your bloodline from ending up a certain way, and you're looking at a photo which refers to a multi-generational set of partner choices, you're obviously talking about dictating racial preferences to your children. There is no other way to interpret this. You cannot prevent your bloodline from ending up like this unless you make an effort to keep your kids from shacking up with lighter-skinned people. That's like the only way to interpret this. Any other way of interpreting this is deranged.
In a country and they're at war, you shouldn't be surprised that they act like they're at war, even though you didn't tell anybody to pick up a gun and kill anybody. Like
So
there's
you
no
think
reason for
Afrofuturism is equivalent to stochastic terrorism, or at least analogous to
in the way
stochastic terrorism.
in the way that you can in the way that you can bring that into the real world. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And the way in
So
which
if
you
I say,
and
if
the
I
way
say
in which
I
you
don't
like
care,
talk about it to
if
people,
I say
and yeah.
I don't care what my kids do or what anybody else does, I want my kids to be dark skinned like me. That's stochastic terrorism.
There
Wait. You don't care what they do, but you want them to be of a certain race. So you want your kids to be dark skinned, but you're okay with them and all the generations forthwith shacking up with non-dark-skinned people?
Where's the prescription? You keep saying that there's no prescription.
There isn't. I'm choosing
is a
my
prescription.
personal choice. How?
That is a prescription. Wait,
It's a prescription to say that I don't care what anybody else does. Where?
that's not it. That's not the part that I'm talking about.
The part that so you have an issue with my personal choices. So you have an issue with these people's personal choice.
For one, honestly, yeah. Like if you engage in this type of stuff, yeah. Like your personal choices can be pretty fucking bad. 100%.
So why are you
because
sea watching, bro?
They don't just talk about this. You're not like a single human being in all of this.
Oh, by the way, you don't even need to involve kids. I don't even respect this guy's desire to have his kids look like him. He's literally just saying, like, I would only have children with a black woman. I don't respect that either. I mean, you can do what you want, but the fact that that is your preference is pretty to begin with, right? Like, there are white racists who might be like, yeah, I only want to have white children, and like, they have the right to choose their partner, but I will judge them for having that preference.
Okay? You're talking about your spouse, you're talking about children and grandchildren. There are a bunch of other people here who do not get an input, and the way in which you treat them can 100% be
What if his
disgusting.
kids have albinism? Oh, the fucking the karmic punishment.
And like circling back to this, they gave the prescription because the prescription is implied.
It's implied,
like
it's implied.
any human being can, like, I don't know, this seems like odd to me. And I know for a fact you'd pick it up anywhere else this was happening, but you're making a special exemption for this.
Because anti-blackness is global and blackness.
Okay, so you do
is
make an
very
exemption for
distinct.
this. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Why wouldn't I?
That's bad.
First
Cringe.
of all, I'm a dark-skinned black person, so this directly affects me, whether or not people like me exist in the future. That's
No, it
number
doesn't.
one. Okay, it would affect me, right?
No.
If I was going
No, in the future you'll be dead. It doesn't affect you. You'll be dead.
to be born in the future, I would not be born in the future. That's number
No,
one.
so like this to him, he is his race. That's it. Like what if everyone in the future is like shorter or whatever, like 1,000 years from now they're shorter on average because of like different environmental factors. If this guy's like 6'2", would he be like, oh, I couldn't exist in that future, I wouldn't be in the future? Because like, no, you'll just be slightly different. If you were in that future, if you were born in the future, they would just be slightly different. Like you would anyway. That's how genetics works. Vaush, race preferences aren't racist. It's completely fair for a black person to want someone who can share and understand experiences that are racially unique. There's nothing inherently wrong with preferences with regards to your partner. I acknowledge that. And people are going to be influenced. But there's a difference between having preferences, like kind of just sort of generally, and having determinative preferences. So people don't like to talk about this openly because it sounds kind of like cringe or whatever. But like, let's be totally fucking real, okay? I grew up in LA, very multiracial city, albeit very segregated, okay? Culturally, white and black people in LA tend to have very different experiences, which means that a lot of white people are going to relate a lot more to other white people, and a lot of black people are going to relate a lot more to other black people. Now, nobody wants to say this out loud because of PC liberal cuckolds or whatever, but if we could sort of activate the anti-PC cuckoldry field, and I was talking to like some white person in LA, and they were like, you know, like I'd probably prefer to end up with a white person just because we've had like similar cultural experiences. You know, like I know there are a bunch of differences in the city, blah, blah. I don't think there's anything inherently racist about that. If anything, it just seems like it's an acknowledgement of general cultural differences. But here's the catch. That's a non-essentialist process because there are black people who have similar cultural experiences to the white people in LA, aren't there? I knew black people in Beverly Hills. So clearly, when we talk about, you know, broad preferences, we're sort of painting generally, we're painting with a broad brush. The issue is this guy's making a determinative statement. And it's not about anything like, I think I'd get along better with a black woman. It's, I want my children to be black. See, that's an essentialist position there. It's not about, oh, there tend to be commonalities here that would be more likely to be better for us. It's a hard line. This is the race that I will be with. And that's what makes the real difference. So sorry, I don't mean to like carve out caveats and sound like I'm sort of like avoiding the point or whatever, but I do think that's a critical distinction right there. But I feel that way about a lot of things, you know? Yeah, I feel that way in many respects. There are preferences that are defensible, but this guy is so far beyond that, talking about fucking race war, genocide, whatever, you know.
Number two, like I'm still not understanding why these people's personal preference. Again, he's talking. I never want my right. 2 generations and a melanin gone from that bloodline. We're talking specifically about bloodlines, right? We're not talking about what Black people should do as a whole. They're talking about themselves and their descendants, right? And if they're going to be of the mindset that they need to try to influence who their kids procreate with or whatever, I wouldn't agree with that. But it's really fucking weird to me.
Don't you think they would when they didn't bring up, like, when they brought up the second generation and the kids that they were having? Don't you think that they would have like an opinion on that? Because I would imagine what the real issue was that like very light skin or white baby from that darker skinned grandfather, don't you think? And don't all those memes about like the bloodlines getting lighter, don't they always include like the white or like almost white grandchild, a great grandchild with a dark skinned grandparents or great grandparents?
Listen to what you just said and what we referenced earlier. It's not about Malaysian people. It's not about Filipino people. It's not about Thai people. It's about white people, because whiteness is something very specific, especially in contrast to blackness. Why is this like hard concept to understand?
I want to ask this question because this seems very interesting to me. If let's say white supremacy never existed, would you feel the same exact way about the whole like breeding thing?
If there was a specific group that said that actively devalued dark-skinned people, yeah, that's the whole thing, right? Is that we exist in a culture, whether we're conscious of it or not, that actively devalues melanin and dark-skinned people. So applying value to that as a consequence of that is really fucking weird, when the alternative is to just say, fuck it, if they genocide us, they genocide us, right?
We're only talking about race mixing, and he's using the word genocide explicitly. Right there. This is what he's actually thinking in his head. Yeah. No matter whether or not he's willing to own the like end point of his positions, like, yeah, we're only talking about race mixing here.
But this,
which is kind of your take, right? Because you don't care if dark-skinned people.
You used to have this guy in a panel you hosted? Yeah, I did. You know what? I'm gonna keep it real with you, okay? You start looking for like all black panels, whatever. There are gonna be some guys who are like this. You know why? Because you fucking whites don't call this shit out. You do nothing. White people, when they when they like say shit like this, like racist shit like this or whatever, get lumped into the category racist pretty fucking quick. At least to lefties they do, you know, not everywhere, but in our circles they do. You guys, you white people who are by far the majority of online politics, live streaming, debate, whatever consumers, you guys are way the more permissive of this shit.
People exist in the future.
But that's not genocide.
Then why did they call it that?
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about an individual choice that somebody makes when it comes to who they date and who they don't date and who they procreate and who they do not procreate with. Me, you, Aston Mac, Umar, that's his name, Umar Johnson, is that right? I've never listened to a single thing from him, but he kind of makes me uncomfortable.
I don't know who that is.
Okay. I don't know. Other
you got other
Negro pale people. What?
I drive a forklift 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I don't have the time to pay attention to a lot of these other content creators. I'm not going to hold you. But I mean, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with being a dark-skinned person who values other dark-skinned people and wants their children to be
I value dark-skinned people.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that I need them or going to, if it happens naturally, like try to push for them to continue existing. That's fine.
The goal of the project of white supremacy was for it to happen naturally.
Do you think that if you
No, I don't. I really wish I knew where he was getting this. The idea that there's some kind of grand project of white supremacy that involves slowly turning black people brown via race mixing with white people. I have no clue. Yeah, I've never even heard that framing.
If you're a black person and you have sex with a white person and have lighter skinned babies, are you like a unwitting foot soldier of white supremacy?
No.
How can you not?
He thinks
when
yes.
You just said that was the goal.
He thinks yes. He means yes. Again, he's running away from because you keep bringing up this natural the conspiracy goal to make black people disappear. In the same breath, you're talking about a random black person just having a white spouse. It seems like they have to be working in tandem, even unwittingly, for this to happen. Because otherwise, you wouldn't be bringing them up together.
You were the one that brought them up together.
So I just well,
My whole point from
no,
the very beginning is that
I didn't.
people should be allowed. Okay. So you think that it's weird for people to have preferences as far
Yeah, I don't understand because like the race mixing doesn't reliably accurately like have people's melanin count or whatever. It obviously doesn't work that way. The population of Africa is higher than the population of Europe by 1/2 billion. I do not think white supremacists are so invested in the destruction of dark-skinned people that we're going to that we're going to try to what intermix to make us all. That would end with us all being black. It doesn't make any sense. I don't get it at all. White supremacists have always tried to prevent miscegenation.
as what their children look like and who they grew up around. That's obvious, right? I would agree.
Can you say that one more time?
You think it's weird for people to have any type of stock in what their children look like and the family members that they have their children with, right?
I do think it's weird, and the more militant you get about it, the weirder it gets until it reaches peak.
I would agree.
You're a bad person.
I would agree. In a vacuum. The thing is that we don't live in a vacuum. We live in a culture and a society that actively devalues dark skin.
Sure. Wait, let me ask this question. I want to switch it around. Do you think that if you specifically
So it's important to remember what he's essentially saying right now is the anti-race mixing paranoid, ethno-statey values that I'm holding right now are justified because I'm the persecuted minority. Guys, every group thinks they're the persecuted minority. I'm gonna keep it 100 with you. There's a reason why the Nazis spent so much time talking about how they were the victims of a big Jewish conspiracy. Every group frames themselves the victim. It doesn't matter whether or not they actually are when it comes to stuff like, anti-miscegenation laws. The actual, did it matter that white people were not actually being oppressed in America in, 1850s when they passed anti-miscegenation laws? No, the anti-miscegenation laws went through either way. So this attitude of, victimhood means it's okay for us to do all this stuff that would otherwise be bad is just not true. It does not work that way.
have dark-skinned children, are you fighting back against white supremacy?
Yes, because you're procreating more dark-skinned people.
So
you're doing the opposite of what
when you make more dark-skinned people, you're fighting against white supremacy. But when you make more light-skinned people, you're not helping white supremacy.
Because those kids are still black.
But you said, well, dark skin is what was the important part for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're not dark skinned, would they? Would they be? The likelihood would be low.
Between a black person and a white person?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sure, but
Okay.
the kid would still be black at the end of the day.
Okay. So once again, you're telling me you would be fighting against white supremacy to have dark-skinned children, but you would not
Right.
be helping white supremacy when you have light-skinned children.
Black people having children at all is fighting against white supremacy.
Are you not helping as much? Are you helping less, or are you hurting more than somebody having dark-skinned children?
You are okay. So in terms of black people, you're not really. It's like neutral because if you're a black person, your kids are going to be black. That's what blackness is.
But we're talking
right?
about dark skin here.
Okay, so if we're talking about dark-skinned people on an individual basis, it's kind of inconsequential. But yeah, if you
Wait, he doesn't even believe that because the last kid in that 2-generation photo that the tweet was about looked white and was being treated as white.
as a whole, as a group, if the majority of dark-skinned people decided that they wanted to have kids with lighter-skinned people for whatever reason, then that would be the completion of the goal of white supremacy, whether they were conscious of it or not. The thing is that
cares?
most black people...
I genuinely cannot believe that he thinks that white and black people intermarrying is the completion of the goal of white supremacy. I have no fucking idea. That is just so insane to me. Yeah, okay.
don't operate that way. I care.
My question is, who cares?
I mean,
If that's actually
people care.
if that's actually what they want, who cares? Why is it important to change their mind or take their hand and tell them you need to do something else? We are at the point where,
first of all, we're not making a prescription. That's number one. Number two, as I said we are not, as I said multiple times throughout this conversation as well, cultural hegemony means that you don't have to have that goal to complete it. people don't have to be racist to engage in anti-blackness or white supremacy.
Okay,
There's lots
so
of
you
people
are
look
So he does think it's anti-blackness and white supremacy to have interracial. Yeah.
you in
working
your
to
eye and
complete the. So you are working to complete the goal of white supremacy, but you're not a foot soldier or unwitting, like a.
this is such a
fool?
dishonest framing of this.
How? This seems like 1-to-1 to me. Like,
It's
how
not.
do you help a wrongful cause while also not being an unwitting, like, what's the word for it? It's like a something fool. What is
Because
it?
your light-skinned kids could still have dark-skinned kids if they choose to date and procreate with dark-skinned people, especially if they're black, because they're going to occupy the same
Yeah,
class
useful
at the
idiot.
end
Thank
of
you.
the day.
Yeah, or how are you not a useful idiot to this? I don't know. It's just.
I mean, sure, if you would like to portray it that way, but as stated previously, your kids are still going to be black, which means that in all likelihood, they're probably also going to value darker skin.
God, this guy's brain is just down to the core, isn't it?
Will they? I don't know. It
I
seems
would
like
hope
it
so.
seems like these days a lot of people really, like you explained it. You said a lot of people really like lighter skin. Isn't it like a big thing? Like don't a lot of people hold on pedestals like white girls and like light skin or red bone girls is like the ultimate like female prize?
Yeah, that's very much true, but to pretend like that is equivalent to active hatred of dark-skinned people is kind of disingenuous, don't you think?
What?
No, not really. A lot of people can feel that way.
So if someone really likes white people, that automatically means that they hate black people?
Wait, take it one step back. I want to make sure I heard you right because I may have misheard you.
So if someone's really into, say, for example, they're super enthusiastic about Irish culture, or we'll say white culture, right? Even though we understand what whiteness is.
Really
Does
like
that
potato
necessarily
salad.
mean that they automatically hate all dark-skinned people, hate all black people?
No.
Okay, then. So when we talk about people who are actually marginalized and the target of white supremacy, why does liking them mean that they dislike someone else? As stated
We're
before,
not talking about whether they're liking. We're talking about whether you would preclude a given race from interbreeding.
these people are talking about their own generations.
It's
and
not just
making
it's
it-
not just liking them.
Okay.
It's like I still don't understand how you don't get the implied prescription here of a sentence like that. And it feels like you understood it when we talk about like other people when it comes to the same exact situation, when it comes to gay people, or like if I was to make some
Because gay people is not an analogy to black people. It's just not. Furthermore, black gay
disagree.
people exist. I know you disagree because you don't understand this shit and it's obvious.
okay.
Ooh.
Yeah,
You
black,
can
yeah,
have
like
black-
that's
there
just
is black people-
that's just intersectionality though. Okay. Yeah, I know
Right.
intersectionality exists. You can be at the crossroads of multiple different prejudice and power
Right. The
positions.
whole purpose of the
And you can
intersection
be
is not.
and you can
it's
be
not
at the
called
intersection
parallel.
of two marginalized positions, which could be black and gay.
So why do we need to talk about gay if we're talking about black then?
I think it's
Oh,
quite
God.
I think it's quite easy to make an analogy between two marginalized classes.
It's not. It's
Okay.
not because white gay people exist. That's what
Okay.
gentrification is.
What?
What? White people are gentrifying. Wait, can you explain? Can you elaborate, please?
White people find a nice. So white queer people exist in a weird intersection because they don't get all the benefits of white supremacy, even though they themselves are white. So what they
Yes, they do. They just don't get the benefits of heterosexual hegemony. Or sorry, yeah, thank you. Heteronormativity. Like he's going to essentialize this down to like the race thing again. Because he's anti-intersectional.
do is they find other marginalized communities and center themselves in them. And as a consequence of that, they push those other people out. That's why a lot of the most gentrified areas that you see have rainbow flags. This is studied and written about.
All right. Let's even take that.
So, I guess considering the fact that everything else he said is basically just Nazi ideology, he would default to the globo homo as well. So this is a really complicated subject, but the really broad of it is that gentrification is done by investment companies, house construction companies, and realtor investors working in collaboration with city political officials and the police to make more money off of given properties by kicking poorer, usually non-white communities out in favor of people who are willing to come right in. And guys, I want you to think for a second, politically speaking, which groups do you think are most likely to be okay moving into a neighborhood that is adjacent to black communities, that is inner city, that is culturally rich? Is it going to be bumpkus conservative white boys from the rural areas? No. It's going to be largely liberal and progressive urbanites, and a lot of those people are queer. The political forces at work here are not malicious from the part of the progressives or the liberals or whatever. The housing markets, sort of the cogs of the housing market turn inevitably with the whim of the incredibly wealthy and powerful investors in housing companies that decide stuff like this. The developers and the landlords and blah blah. But yeah, if you wonder why there tend to be so many gay flags in recently gentrified areas, it's because the people who move there are people who tend to be okay with living in inner cities and tend to be okay living around black people. Namely, they tend to be progressives. So businesses established there either cater to that or are established and run by people of those political dispositions. So you have like a middle or upper middle class progressive demographic that tends to be the primary wave of gentrification. They do not cause gentrification. Even if no gay people existed or whatever, even if this group of upper to middle class progressive urbanites didn't exist, other groups would fill these spaces because realtors develop them to be filled, obviously. The progressives aren't the ones in power here when it comes to gentrification.
That is true for a moment.
It is.
Why are you like removing their intersectionality of this issue?
They're white, so they automatically raise the property value, which means that people that can't afford that shit can't live there.
We're not
what
talking
class
about
exists?
gentrification at the moment.
Okay.
Also, I don't know what white people are really supposed to do about that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. me progressively painting myself with shoe shine before walking outside so that if any prospective home buyers walk by, they think I'm black and I keep the housing prices down in my neighborhood.
So why are you removing their intersectionality? They still are marginalized.
Who's intersectionality?
They're still marginalized even if they are white.
Gay people? White
Yes.
gay people?
Yes.
Because they're not black.
What?
They're the opposite
Okay.
of black.
What?
Okay.
The races aren't on a color wheel. There's no okay. Again, it's all black and white, like great race politics, race war. His struggle, you know.
I'm not denying their intersectionality.
You are.
I'm very much acknowledging their intersectionality. Did I not at the beginning say that they don't get all the same benefits from white supremacy as other cishet white people?
Sure, but you're saying that they're like so fundamental.
No, but they do. Whether you're gay or not, the benefits of white supremacy continue to exist. This is what intersectionality is. There are other things, the heteronormativity. That's the thing that...
different. And once again, I'm still talking simply about the sexuality and or the identity.
Okay, you're memeing now because I know you know the difference between white gay people and black gay people.
I know the difference.
Okay, so then what's this conversation about?
I'm just, we didn't have to get on this part. You could have, all I said was that like, it's pretty easy to...
I mean, you're the one who loves analogies.
Yeah, he can't understand oppression that isn't racial. His worldview can't, like, account for it.
When we're talking about something very simple, so I was just trying to get on your level.
What's wrong? What's wrong with analogies?
We're talking about something that doesn't need analogy.
I just don't, that feels like anti-intellectualism to me.
It's anti-intellectualism to say that you should be able to speak plainly about things.
That sounds exactly like this is common sense. Why should we like...
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's common sense. I'm saying you can speak about these things without needing to analogize because there is no analog to blackness.
I I mean, okay, if you feel that way. I just don't think that we're just gonna agree on that.
It's the truth.
Okay.
Black
Yeah,
is
if you
very
feel that way.
specific in terms of class. Do you
All
not
right.
understand this?
Okay. I don't. I mean, like it just like some
You can be all
treated
kinds of
worse
things.
than others.
Yes, and black
marginalized
people
groups?
black and indigenous people get treated the worst no matter what intersection they are. Gay,
Okay.
straight, bi, lesbian.
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on like where they are and everything.
No, that's where they exist in the world because anti-blackness is global. White supremacy and imperialism is a global project.
This isn't what he's saying is just not true. It's just it's too complicated, and he's trying to make a very strong, very deterministic, very black and white argument for something that is so insanely complicated that no single person could like describe even a fraction of it. Like, what are the racial politics of the planet? Dude, I don't know. Go get me like 10,000 experts to argue over it.
Are we really
Do you
having this
think that
conversation right
here?
now?
I want to ask this question. Do you think that there are some areas where black people are treated better than gay people?
I'm assuming this was an easy Shark W. Oh yeah, I'm really important, for sure, for sure. I want to point out, by the way, this doesn't usually happen when I go over other debates, but Shark has been killing it like every point of this. You know, we're watching Shark's debate. We're view stealing, okay? If you dipshits don't go on over and sub and watch to his shit, okay? That's because you're racist. What? You sub to me but not to him? What? Because I'm white? Wow.
Do I?
Yeah. Do you think that's possible? Or
That's
do you
a
think
weird
that
question because black gay
I just
people
want to.
exist.
I just want to ask.
Black gay people exist.
Sure. What are they like?
So how is that?
What are they
is-
like? 0.2% of the population or something?
I don't necessarily.
Didn't you say
know
earlier that you
number.
could go your entire life without like being known as like queer or something? So let's say
yeah,
like
the same is
sure,
not true
so-
of being dark skinned
okay.
black or black.
Okay, so let's say once again, they don't know that there's any gay people. Well, they don't know. Yeah, they don't know if there's any like gay people. Do you think that like there's an area on God's green earth where like anywhere it could be like a little town where like black people are treated better than gay people typically?
I just truly don't. I can't answer this question because black gay people exist. So I don't understand the question.
Okay. All right then.
He's not willing to answer it at all. There are people who have been treated worse. Like, there are white people in black neighborhoods who have been treated worse than the people around them because they're white. It's not common at all. When you're talking about billions of people on Earth, yeah, stuff happens. Lots of stuff happens. Counterexamples happen. It gets complicated. Life is complicated. Analysis is complicated.
Black and gay are not two separate entities. You can be black and gay.
Okay.
The state and the city that I live in is very black and very queer.
All right. I'm not denying that. I actually don't. I don't know what to tell you, partner.
Likewise.
Rootin' tootin'.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think I think when you're marginalized, we can like analogize to other marginalized statuses.
Not with
them
black
being
people.
Exactly.
Because black people
the same.
exist at the bottom and intersect with all other marginalized communities.
Again, like, it's the painting of a grand racial narrative that he's trying to do. Like, there's no like set of interlocking contextual, like, you know, it's not like this big broad complex thing. It's like the war, you know, it's the battle between blackness and whiteness, and that's it, and everything can be framed into that, you know. Intersectionality, as long as it has only one axis.
Doesn't matter what marginalized community you're talking about, there's black people there and they get treated worse than white people.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about, bud?
Nah, I think I'm about done.
Okay. All right. Have a good night. Take care of yourself. Okay.
Likewise, brother. Stay black.
I guess.
I'm gonna stay white every time I talk to a white person now at the end of the convo.
I just like, was there anything more for me to like touch on? I'm gonna be completely honest with you. Was there anything else that I could possibly say?
This meme is very real.
Nah, Shark, you good. You good, Shark. You good. I like Shark a lot. Seriously, you really should subscribe to his channel. They call me the White Shark. He was not willing to admit his positions because he knew they were horrible. Yeah. A lot of people do that. You good? Was that Ebonics? Ebonics is not the proper term anymore. It's AAVE, actually. It really sucks that Ebonics is a racist term, because AAVE sounds so fucking nerdy and it's so difficult to say quickly, you know? Like, it's such a Poindexter Why not just say jive? Absolutely, dude. Hey, Lamau, no cap. Oh, sorry, that was just me speaking jive. You know, I learned a little bit of it on the over the weekend, and it's really livened up my vocabulary. Demon Mama, defend that guy. Well, remember what I said about white people being overly permissive of racism when it comes from black people if they're progressive? Yeah. I warned you. Warned you all. His community is now calling Shark a race traitor. Can you show me that? What do you mean by his community? Is there like a Twitter or anything? Is there some place that I can see that? Sake, thanks to $10. Yep, it's the Professor Flowers thing again. It's the same thing. We're gonna keep running into this, guys. It's the same like my arguments that are indistinguishable from ethno-state, racist, fascist, Nazi, conspiracy, whatever, white genocide. You know, it's all fine because I'm the minority group. It's a pretty common issue.